we went out, saw the property, and wrote the guy an offer and ended up doing the deal. And it was one of the most, I mean, on a percentage basis, it was the most profitable deal that we've done. And come to find out, after talking with the guy, he found us on he found our Carrot site organically, and we weren't trying to do anything SEO wise or rank in the Google search results. We weren't trying to do any of that, but it just happened, and it was the coolest thing ever.
Hey friends, welcome back to the CarrotCast podcast, where we help agents and investors like yourself build businesses of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Brady Winder. Today I have with me Dan and Will. Will, welcome back to America. Dan, welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I think I got COVID when I was over in India, but I'm on the tail end of that, so feeling a lot better and really excited to be on here today.
Oh man. Well, I'm glad that you're in tip top shape for the podcast, and yeah, I'm glad you're back.
That's right. Now I got antibodies.
Oh my goodness. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having us on. Excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's going to be a fun conversation. So the reason I'm excited for this podcast, everyone listening, is I love hearing a good story about anyone who takes a leap of faith from their business to what they feel they're being called to do, takes a big risk for a big opportunity. These two guys left six-figure jobs to flip homes in a very competitive market in Northern Virginia. And so we're going to talk about what it's like flipping in a competitive market. And we're going to talk about how they use Carrot to get some of their first few leads and deals and how they're standing out in a competitive market. It's a really simple marketing strategy. So I think some of you that have just signed up for Carrot, or even if you're new to investing, you might find this encouraging to see the simple few actions these guys are taking. And they're not doing massive volume, but they are getting providing really good income for themselves. They're making a really healthy living in a competitive market. So it is possible to do that as flippers. And then towards the end, we're going to talk about something cool, a cool tool that they've created for investors. And we're going to show you guys that and talk about how they're making an impact in their business, because it is Impact Month at Carrot. So that being said, go to carrot.com/impact, get the rest of the content for this month. But other than that, we're going to dive in and get to know these guys. Dan, Will, I can't remember. Did you guys have backgrounds in real estate? How did you guys get started?
So Dan and I actually met, I believe it was 2017. I was in the mortgage business at the time, and I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids at the time, and I was just trying to hustle. So on the weekends, I would make cookies and go visit open houses and try to meet realtors, where I would ultimately, try to build a relationship and get business from them. So Dan and I met then, and we just hit it off instantly, and we started doing some deals together there. And we actually had a mutual client. He ended up leaving that space, going out in the government contracting world. And then I ended up, I was still in the mortgage business, gung ho, trying to grow that. And so fast forward a few years, it was successful and, very, very lucrative. It was six figures, well over that my first year in the business. But it was really just I felt like I was on a hamster wheel, and it was just I was just a high paid W-2 person. It was 100% commission. And while I didn't have set office hours and I, in a sense, worked for myself, I was still beholden to people calling me at 9 p.m. complaining about, something going on with their loan or something with the real estate transaction. And I just realized it was not something that I wanted to do forever. So, and simultaneously I had been buying some properties while I was, making decent money in the mortgage business. And I knew that was what I ultimately wanted to transition into. So in 2019, Dan calls me and he has this opportunity to flip this house, and we end up going in on it together while we both have, W-2 jobs, and it went well. And we made every mistake in the book, but it went very well. We netted about 47 grand on it. If we did it today, we probably would have made 60 plus, but
Yeah.
it was our first deal and there were a lot
Nice.
of lessons learned. But after that, we sort of looked at each other and we were like, you want to do more of this? That was kind of fun. And so that was I believe we ended up selling it towards the end of 2019. And we made the decision that I was gonna leave my mortgage job at the end of 2019. I was gonna let all my licenses expire and we were gonna jump out into this full time. And Dan's initial plan was to work into 2020, and that wasn't ultimately what happened. So I guess Dan, I'll let you talk about your background.
So the flip came around and we had a great time, and I think what Will was getting at was we overdid the renovation, and something we don't do anymore. We just kind of made a house that was kind of a medium grade house, and it made it really, really nice. Overdid it a little bit. So we spent a little bit too much, and we got it done quick, and it was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. So we started talking about getting into this full time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of cushy though. I travel a lot. Let me make a plan. And then we had some redundancies at work. And so I was like, let go all of a sudden, like in February or whatever of 2020. And it was like, all right, we're doing this full time because I'm not redoing my resume. I am like, let's go do this, bud.
Yeah.
And so we had been working a little bit prior, putting to get the business together, like doing Zoom meetings like this and kind of saying, building, a business structure, because that was the plan anyway. So, we got in and it was, we haven't looked back. It's been awesome.
And what a crazy time at the time, it wasn't crazy. That was right before everything went crazy. And little did we know the whole world was about to implode. But February of 2020 to have that massive shift and then go to the pandemic. Was that scary for you, Will, taking that leap of faith? Be like, oh, I'm out. What was that like? Or was it a leap of faith, I guess?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I had prepared for it. I knew every day is a blessing to not be in the mortgage business. I'm very grateful for all the relationships I built there and for the person that, hired me and gave me an opportunity. But man, that is a thankless business, and just being off doing your own thing and Dan and I always talk about how, flipping houses, there's no client. There's nobody that we have to really answer to. We are the client in a sense when we're dealing with contractors and guys like that. The only headache comes into the mix when we're trying to sell a house and you got realtors calling you but luckily Dan's the agent and I'm not. So yeah. So to go back to your question, it wasn't super daunting. We put a good plan together, but like Dan was saying, we when he was let go from his job, it was sort of a burn the ships type of thing. We had I don't think we had any deals on the horizon, and we just knew we had to execute. We had a good plan in place, but we had to go execute on it.
Well, you had that urgency,
Yeah. Well, I remember a conversation that I had with Will in late 2019. He's like, dude, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done. I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to just starve. Like, and he literally was done. And I was like, let me stock up some money. And he's like, I don't care what you do. I'm done. And so it was like, all right, well, I'm coming, and then we just haven't looked back. Like I said, it's been great.
That's awesome. So, and you guys, for context for people listening, you guys are true cash buyers. You're buying the properties, you're flipping them yourselves. Are you doing any sort of wholesaling or any other sort of real estate strategies, or is it just pretty much just flips?
No, we're pretty anti wholesaling. We buy them ourselves and we do all the work ourselves and then we sell it. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. So when you guys, you took the leap of faith, you left your jobs, and what were the first things you guys started doing for marketing? How did you okay, you got to get leads, you got to find these flips. What were you doing?
Yeah, so we were doing a few things. Dan, remember the people we had over in where was that?
VAs.
Yeah, we had these VAs and it didn't go well. And there were chickens clucking in the background. And no, so we tried the VA thing and tried, cold calling and a few other marketing channels. We used Sherpa, which I'm sure you've heard of, Lead Sherpa. And that was cool. And we actually got a deal from it. And that deal went really well. That was our first deal that we did after that first one that we did prior to forming the business that we mentioned.
Sherpa deal.
Yeah. So that was our yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I just want to know how many, about how many calls or how long that took.
It was pretty fast. And then after that, it kind of seemed like a fluke. And I know that with Sherpa and launch control, I know that they're constantly, it's a game of cat and mouse with TCPA laws and something changed. And it drastically impacted our reach and what we were able to do. And after that, we saw, and then simultaneously we just didn't feel like it was a very long-term scalable thing. Yeah. So we ultimately ended up pulling the plug on that. But we got a deal from it, which was good.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like a lot of you can make any marketing method work, but building your business on one of them, it's risky. It's scary.
Exactly.
There's not that predictability. And when regulations change, it happens fast. And where are your leads?
Yeah. Bingo.
And if I can jump in, I think that one of the things that really kind of bothered us about, we hate getting texts ourselves, right? We hate the obtrusive, hey, do this, do that. And it just felt like it just wasn't in our DNA to kind of be those guys. And so we said, we got to figure this out better and figure out different ways. And, even we tried direct mail, we did, other things like that. It's really like the website or Google was like our last thing that we really got into marketing wise. We just found why don't we start there? We tried literally everything else,
Yep.
Cold calling,
and now that's all we do now.
Yeah.
So what are the marketing strategies right now? Or what are your, how are you guys getting your leads?
So our main one is Google Ads. So we burned through a few different guys that would manage our ad campaigns, and we weren't really getting anything from those guys. A lot were just generic PPC experts, so to speak. And I'm sure you're familiar with the space. It's challenging. And when you're dealing with clicks that are over $100, you got to know what you're doing and really know how to execute those campaigns. And we just felt like we weren't finding anyone that could do that. And then we had this one guy, I think he cold called Dan, and and we ended up moving forward with him. And we were just like, what the heck? This guy, he's young, he's hungry, and he sounds like he knows what he's doing. He came from I believe a large wholesaler. His name's Parth over at Lead Plug. But he came from a large wholesaler, got tons of experience working on their campaigns, and then he branched off and now he was doing it himself, and they have been phenomenal.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yep. And then also, simultaneously, we've been building our presence online. We've done some blogs, and obviously Carrot has been a huge has been a huge help to our business and just increase our credibility online. And we set up a Google My Business page and have been getting, we make an effort to get reviews on that. And we just try to have a good presence because, pretty much everyone we talk to, they're like, hey, we found you from X, Y, and Z, and we saw your reviews online, and we just loved what everybody was saying. And, so people read all that stuff. It's very important.
Yeah. Okay. So the timeline goes, launched Carrot site. Did you guys customize the site at first? Did you do anything to it, or was it like out of the box? Just
in the beginning, and we actually launched Carrot. Carrot's been our thing from day one. So we've had that going back to when we first started this. And I believe we customized the colors and maybe a few other things from there.
Not much content.
Not much. No, we left the content the same, and it's been pretty much out of the box, and it's been it's been awesome.
That's awesome to hear. So you launched the carrot site, started doing, well, before that, you burned through some other marketing methods, got the carrot site, and then got a Google Ads guy that was cranking for you. And then
that was a little bit later. I'm bouncing around a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that was a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, the carrot site was implemented, and then we were talking about this a little bit before, but one of the things that jump started us and really allowed us to have some cash to play with and expand the business was about 3 or 4 months into starting this. It wasn't our first deal. Like I said, that Sherpa deal was the first one with the business.
Yeah.
And then I believe we picked another one up. COVID hit, and then we picked one up. This guy, he had a bunch of rentals and he was under contract on this property, and so he had to back out. So we came in. We were just right place, right time. That's the only deal we've ever done through the MLS since then. And then after that deal, we were just one day we just got this call, and it was this guy, and he had a property that was distressed, and his wife had gotten sick, and she lived in Washington State. So he had to just sell it. He lived there for 30 years. He had to sell it and move to be with her at the other house they owned in Washington State. And he needed to move ASAP. So we went out, saw the property, and wrote the guy an offer and ended up doing the deal. And it was one of the most, I mean, on a percentage basis, it was the most profitable deal that we've done. And come to find out, after talking with the guy, he found us on he found our carrot site organically, and we weren't trying to do anything SEO wise or rank in the Google search results. We weren't trying to do any of that, but it just happened, and it was the coolest thing ever. And I mean, just to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit, we ended up walking away with, I think it was slightly over 110,000 on that deal. So, I mean, it was a phenomenal deal and really springboarded us into, being able to experiment and do more things with the business.
Dude, that's the difference between, a cold calling lead and someone that's, an organic lead. They searched on Google. They had the problem. It's like, I need to sell my house fast. I need to get out of this. Found you guys. And versus, a cold calling lead or an outbound lead that you're having to reach out to. That's a 9-day difference.
Dan and I always talk about how, it's just such a different feeling when you're doing Sherpa and cold calling and even mailers. It just, you're trying to reach out to them and convince them, and it just feels a lot more salesy. Whereas when people are coming to you and they're finding you online, it's like they're reaching out to you and they want your service, and it's just a much different dynamic. And to us, that was what after we got that deal, that's when we realized that that was what we wanted to do long term, and it just felt like that was a much more sustainable way to run the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that's another, you mentioned that you weren't doing any active SEO. You weren't like customizing much on your website to try and get it to rank higher, but that's even another reason why it's key to have that credibility and that authority on your website. Like, get those testimonials as soon as possible, especially when you hadn't been in business that long and you're going up against people that have been in business for years and already have that. And so
that's it. That's exactly right. I mean, those testimonials are key when you can get more and more of those. It just really boosts your credibility.
Yeah. And then you had mentioned that you guys have your Google My Business profile dialed in. You've got that up and going. Have you noticed any leads? Are you guys tracking any leads from that, or is that still an experiment right now?
No, we have gotten some leads from that. Yeah. As of recent, that's definitely, anything Google takes a while. And I'm sure you guys know this, in this space in particular, it's hyper competitive, and we're in, Northern Virginia, outside the DC area. And it's very, very competitive. So it's hard. It takes time when it comes to stuff like this. Anything organic is going to take time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you guys are in a very competitive market, but I think I was having this conversation with Andy Kaloji. We've done a couple podcasts on SEO with him, and he was talking about how it's not as competitive and as saturated as people think. It's more so that people just don't want to put in the amount of time that it takes, to get the result. And so it's like, yeah, there are people ranking, but are they consistently making updates? Are they doing anything to stay on top? Basically, he was getting at, it's usually not that hard to outrank them or get up in the rankings.
That's true. Yeah. Because a lot of it seems like a lot of people in the space, like you said, they sort of fall into this, and if they don't know what they're doing to continue that success and those good rankings, then that is true. Someone can come in and unseat them. And I'm sure that, I've definitely tried to, SEO just seems, it's such a difficult thing. And just when you feel like you know everything about it, you learn something new, and it's like, it just completely invalidates everything you thought you knew.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it changes. And that's part of, what Carrot exists for. It's what we're here for, is to, well, one, to help keep you educated on what those changes are, but two, to stay on top of some of those technical changes so that you don't have to worry about like, oh, do I need to change this on my website? Do I need to change that? So
exactly.
Yeah. Take that out of the equation.
Exactly.
Are there any other marketing you guys are doing? Or it's pretty much just Google Ads, organic SEO, Google My Business. Anything else you guys are doing? You're still baking cookies at all?
No, we always joke about that though, because that was literally the only thing I did in the mortgage business. And it took me from 0 to 100 really, really fast. And we always joke about, we need to find the open house strategy. We need to find that, the thing that's going to just, be the best marketing channel ever. And we think we found it now with Google and Google Ads, but we're still experimenting with stuff. One thing we recently started doing is doing some letters and they're handwritten letters to people that are going through the process of probate. Because what we've found is that people that are going through probate, they're getting blown up by wholesalers and just, for lack of a better word, people that are not caring, and they write the yellow letters, and they're just very crass and they just come across very, very unsympathetic. And I think that if you can write a handwritten note, take some time to do that and really show that you care and that you're there to be a resource for them, and that you're truly there to help with whatever they need. I mean, we're pretty well connected in the real estate space and know different attorneys and different places where we can direct people, to title companies, stuff like that. And depending on what they need. So we've started doing that, and we have not actually closed it. We only started in the last month or two. But I know, Dan, I believe you had an appointment with a woman that was booked. Is that right?
I've spoken to multiple people. Because we're coming from a place of helping. And it's just, what can we do to help? And I've given some advice to some people, and two of them said, I might be interested in selling my house. One is kind of, just starting the process, and one just finished up probate and said, like could have it come out, and then they changed their mind. And I said, well, cool, whatever you need from us, it really is coming from a spot of giving. So we're not really worried about the results per se.
What are you putting on the letter? What does that sound like?
So, Will and I kind of composed something. It's just like, I know that this is a tough time. And we're coming from a spot of like saying, here's, we know the real estate space. We're here to help. We're not trying to do anything. We know probate attorneys. We know different people in this space. You just need junk cleaners, whatever it is, real estate agents, whatever you need, feel free to reach out to us. We're not here to do anything but help you. And it's really just, again, coming from a giving space. So, and it resonates. I mean, because I've only had one person yell at me from the card, and I don't know how she yelled at me about the card. I think it's because, her parent had passed away and she was just mad at the world, I guess. But everyone else been very like, thank you. And it's been good. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good thing to do if nothing else. So.
Yeah, it's exactly what we were talking about. We just did a podcast came out this month with Bob Berg. He's the author of Go Giver, and it's the just giving value to people. And I like how you're giving them options, and you're making them feel understood and you're making them feel justified. Like we understand This is a tough time. That's your opener instead of, hey, how to grab your attention, something just like just trying to get in front of them. I like that.
Oh, no. So like I read through a bunch of, because obviously there's yellow letters and other things about chasing those type of clients. And it just turned into something like, I hated all of it. And, if you get to know Will and I, like we have a pretty strict moral compass. And that's why like SMS didn't work for us. And then just doing this, if we're going to do it, we're going to come from a spot of giving. And it's like, if we can be a resource for them to buy their house and that really helps them, great for both parties. But I have no problems giving them referrals or spending 20 minutes on the phone, giving them an idea of how probate works and all of that. So like, it's no big deal just to give it. And you get that back if you give out,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that. You guys started something recently called Deal Simple. Tell me about what Deal Simple is and how you stumbled on this.
Yeah, I can jump in. So Deal Simple was started. It was a complete accidental business, and the way it started was when Dan and I first got into this, we were sort of back of the napkin, and then we graduated to building an Excel sheet. Dan was, I wasn't great. And now I'm pretty good at Excel, but back then I was not good. Dan was. So he built an Excel sheet, and then we started looking around because it got complicated being out on the road and needing to access, an Excel file. And then also, I'd make a change to something, save it on my computer, but Dan might not see it on his end. So it wasn't all synced up. So we looked online at some different solutions. We found, I believe we started using FlipperForce, and that was a great product. They're a great company. I know they're growing. I believe they were recently acquired. So they're obviously doing great stuff and are way further ahead than we are. But what we found was way overly complicated. And so we ended up continuing to search. We found a few other ones, even the Bigger Pockets calculators. They're very like, you got to go through multiple screens, and it just wasn't simple, for lack of a better word. And that's ultimately how we came up with the name Deal Simple. And we ended up basically creating a web-based version of this calculator that we built in Excel that took a while to build and really perfect. So we ended up making it web-based, and then we were just adding on to it over time. We made it have the ability to generate an offer with one click. It's just a PDF offer that kind of breaks down the numbers, and we've had great success with that. Our last 2 or 3 deals have all ended up, I don't know if that's 100% the reason they went with us, but people love to see breakdowns of how you arrive at the number you're offering them, as opposed to just throwing them, because in their mind, it's just an arbitrary low ball offer. But if you can back it up with, hey, here's what we think the property will sell for. Here's all the costs, closing costs, renovation. Here's everything it takes to get it there. And then here's the bottom line of what we're offering you. It's a lot more, they understand it a lot better, and it kind of answers a lot of their questions. So,
there's transparency there, and you're not just using it for your calculator. You're showing that, hey, this is, there's nothing to hide here. This is what we're working with. Yeah,
exactly. Bingo. So we ultimately ended up making that web-based. It was a lot easier for Dan and I to access. And then we were sort of just like, hey, you want to put this out there and see if people will pay for it. And so we did, and it started growing, and then we started running some Google ads on it and just testing some stuff, and recently redesigned the entire platform, made it a lot prettier. It's now designed by somebody other than myself. So looks a lot better. And it's been grown, and it's been pretty cool to see. We never thought that we'd be, the founders of a software company, but
yeah,
life's crazy how it takes you weird places.
Well, and if I can add on, I think some of the things that we saw that, being able to add that proposal generator to it, really just, and again, it's our twist, right? Because we are transparent people. Like we like saying, hey, look, your best option is to put your house on the market. Like you're going to get the most money for it. Some people go, yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do. Right. And then we go, if they want to still sell it, they're like, look, we need to move in a week. Then we're like, okay, then maybe we're your option. And the same thing goes with Deal Simple in that proposal thing, is that we put on there, here's a closing cost, here's a renovation cost, here's all these things. And that's how we came up with this number. It wasn't just 50 cents on the dollar, which is kind of the bad rap everybody gets, is they're just going to offer you 50 cents on the dollar. No, literally, we break it down. We tell everybody, look, it's math. We're going to give you as much as we can based on the math that works for us. And it does all that for you. And it's presentable to them. And it really kind of goes along with, one of the big things in our reviews on Google is just transparency. We love being transparent and honest with people at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that's something that your competition can't mimic, something unique.
Yeah, it's a very shady industry, as I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes, in some spaces for sure. So
yeah, the transparency is appreciated. So you mentioned, Dan, do you have your license? Are you an agent as well?
Yeah,
I feel like
I am.
Okay. So when you get a seller who does end up wanting to list that house, are you guys getting that listing?
No, I refer it out.
What's the reasoning there? I'm just curious.
It's just not part of our business structure.
Focus.
I think it's focus. I don't know. Like we sat there and we stewed on doing that. I laugh, I laugh when I say like I'm an agent, because I really am like the worst agent in the world. Like I'm terrible. I help out friends and family kind of thing, but I'm not out there like beating the streets trying to get listings or anything. We do it as a means to an end to save commissions. And that's it. I'm not great at it, but I do understand it. I've been doing it for 7 years now. So, but getting into the transactions is not really what we want to do, because now we're dealing with a client, right? And so we said early on, having no client is the best feeling in the world. And now I have a client, and we're taking this commission, and we got to make them happy. And that's not really what we want to do. So I refer them out.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. And we've heard like Adam and Lance out of Texas. We've had them on the podcast before. They set it up to where they have an agent in-house. So they still maintain that focus. And it's like, almost the same as you guys, except for it's not going out and staying in house. But I can appreciate that, keeping the focus. So you're not, it takes time. It takes time to do the listing.
Well, I mean, I think that, like my concentration is the remodel side of things. And that's a little bit more time consuming. So I'm out at the job site a lot. And if I had to go and take off the dirty clothes and put on the nice clothes, the button up, and then go meet a client type of thing, it's just, I'm focused on like, let's get the renovations done fast. And let's get through this house, nice, but like, every day's $1. So we're just trying to get it done. And that's where if you lose focus and you have 100 things going on, you're just wasting money. The money that we make will probably be losing on the flip. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Well, one thing on that note that I want to ask you, and then we'll talk about kind of the impact you guys are making, and then we'll put a bow on it here. But you guys are in a competitive market. The real estate industry, the market is a little bit volatile right now. We don't know where things are going. Are you guys doing anything differently to protect yourselves, or do anything differently with your flips right now?
That's a great question. So, yes, we have been, and we actually, so there was somebody that came to us I believe it was the beginning of July. We got them. It was a PPC lead from Google, and we talked to them. I went out, saw the house, and we made them an offer. I believe we offered somewhere around 400, and they ended up discussing it. didn't want to move forward with it. They thought the best option was to put their house on the market. So we told them, great, we encourage you to do that. And they did so and just said, hey, we'll come back if things change, but we're going to list it. So they listed it, and the market just didn't give them really anything. So they came back to us 2 months later, and rates had gone up, and the market had softened even further. So we ended up just telling them, like, hey, I don't think the original offer is gonna be valid. And it's not to punish them or anything like that. It's just that we have to protect ourselves, and we know everybody's sort of catching a falling knife here, and we don't know when the market's gonna stabilize, or at least that's how we feel. So we ended up just to mitigate risk, we ended up making them an offer 50 grand less, and they ended up moving forward with it. But to go, that's one specific example. But what we're really focused on is ARV. So we haven't really changed much on everything else. Reno, all that, we still have our same guys. They're still reliable, and their prices really haven't changed. But we're being ultra competitive, or I'm sorry, ultra conservative on the ARVs when we're analyzing deals. So instead of looking at recent comps and going off of that and putting a small buffer like we would do in the past, because we want to remain competitive, now we're putting a much larger buffer there just to account for the changing market and just all the question marks associated with what's going on in the market right now. So to answer your question, boiled down, ARV is something we're extremely focused on right now, as we're in a very, very interesting market.
Yeah. And I think that the approach is really saying, all right, what do we 95% sure this house would sell for? What's a deal on the market? Because I think that's ultimately what's going to go is a good deal. And so we're kind of looking at a townhouse that was $350,000 a couple months ago. But if it's $299,000, $300,000, it's probably going to move. And so we have to kind of base it on, by the time we buy it, close, they have their rent back if they rent out of it, and then we do reno, we're looking at 2 to 3 months before we're on the market. It might be that 300. So, and that's where we are mindset wise.
And is 90 days is that your goal for flips right now? From acquisition to...
Yeah, we usually do it quicker than that, right? I mean, I think we're 60 days.
Depends on the deal. On our Falls Church deal, it's not good. That's one that's actually a good example of a lesson learned. We went under contract on that in February of this year, and the lady, the owner, her husband had passed away a few months prior to that, and she was moving back to Japan, and she needed some time to get everything straightened out, lined up with moving, out of the country. So we let her do that, and we closed at the beginning of May. So it went, 2-3 months under contract, and then we gave her another month free rent back. And we're sitting on that one now because the market completely changed. And it was a little condo, and condos are the first to get hit. And it was just, we're kicking ourselves now. We're like, man, we should have never, let this one hang out there as long as we did. And it's just it's a lesson learned.
Oh man. Holy cow. Well,
yeah.
What do you do? And not every year is like it has been this year, where things change that quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty dramatic.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you guys are taking the right steps and, being conservative and looking at ARV and putting in your buffer, getting your flips done fast, and doing all the right things. I think there's definitely something to learn from there.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, we're about out of time. I wanted to ask you guys, Willie, you've got some interesting stuff going on. You're telling me as far as nonprofits you're involved with. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing on the side with nonprofits.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on the board of one called I'm blessed to be on the board of one called Wholehearted Foundation. My buddy Ryan Capel started it when his shortly after his son was born in 2014 with half a heart. And so it's called congenital heart disease. And it's a crazy thing. And it's a faith-based Christian organization. I'm a Christian, Dan's a Christian. And it's been amazing what what has happened, by the grace of God through that foundation. And it's really, really cool how it's grown. And then my mom also 15 years ago started a nonprofit in Haiti over next to on the island that's connected to the Dominican Republic. And she went there on a mission trip, and they came across an abandoned building with about 40 kids in it they had the orange hair and distended, I believe that's the word, the stomachs that are all puffed out from worms. And they were really malnourished, and they were going to die. And yeah, she ended up coming home, and the original plan was just to figure out a way to provide those kids support and get them into different orphanages. And long story short, it ended up turning into a full-blown 501c3 nonprofit. And today they have their own 40-acre compound, and a school has been built there, church. It's amazing. And they house about 80 kids. And that's been just unbelievable to see the growth there by the grace of God. And they're a Christian organization as well. And so very, very involved with that, been there multiple times. And
hold on. You gave me a small cliffhanger. So what happened? The 40 kids. So this turned into more than she anticipated. What happened with the kids in the building?
Yeah, they ended up, a lot of them are still there. And it's really cool because they've gone through school. In Haiti, the education rate is extremely low. The poverty rate, or I'm sorry, the employment rate is extremely low. Unemployment, I believe, is 85% there. So It's just a very, very, last time I checked, it was the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So it definitely, you go there and come back to the States and have a different outlook on life, and just how grateful we are to live here. But there's a lot of those kids who have gone through school, and now they're starting to work for the organization and help the younger kids. It's just a cool thing. I'm getting chills talking about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And it's so specific. I love how it wasn't like, oh, we have this. There's nothing wrong with, hey, there's these general needs and these groups of people need help. That's amazing. We need that. But it's just really cool to hear of a story where she saw a very specific need and said, I want to help these kids in this building. And then that blossomed into something even bigger. That's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Keep it up. And then you mentioned, are you open to talking about, you'd mentioned there's something you're working on yourself, nonprofit?
Yeah, it's a foundation. I want to support. I've been in the real estate space, and there's some other properties that I've purchased and been on the capital raising side of things, and that's come natural, and have enjoyed doing that. And I really want to start a Christian nonprofit that supports and funds other Christian foundations that are looking to go out and raise money. It's very tough being a Christian nonprofit, because a lot of the grant money is not, it's closed off to anybody that's affiliated with a religion. So, they prefer secular organizations. And I learned that firsthand from seeing my mom's nonprofit, Helping Haitian Angels. So my intent with that is to create sort of like a venture capital firm for these Christian nonprofits. And it's nonprofit. So it's not like it's venture capital and we're trying to make money, but that's the illustration that I would use, where we want to go out and fund these foundations that are trying to go out and make a difference and, lead people to Christ.
Yeah, I love that, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That's really cool. And I love how you're seeing other nonprofits that are making an impact, and like, how can I go a step above that and enable them to make an even bigger impact?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you.
What is that doing? What's that done for you personally? This question is kind of twofold, like your involvement with the nonprofits, and as well as leaving your job to, pursue real estate to get some of that freedom back. You mentioned you have wife and kids now, or you're married now?
I have a wife and a kid on the way.
Away. Oh man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. We don't know boy or girl yet, but we're really excited.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So what do you feel like being involved in those nonprofits and, leaving your job has done for you personally, as far as your ability to, make an impact? And versus just with context, like a lot of people, their journey doesn't look that way. It's like, leave your job, nose the grindstone, don't have time for anything else because I got to figure out this business. But you've taken the time to focus, intentional focus on those things.
Yeah. I mean, you literally just pulled the words right out what I was going to say. Just being able to have that time to, and not to mention money. I mean, money is important. It's a means to an end, and you can do a lot of cool things with money. So, being in a lucrative space like we're in has allowed me to make investments, and a lot of those are coming back, and it's pretty crazy. So, just having those resources and being able to have the time to go out and do things like this is really cool, and definitely more fulfilling than just, being in that mindset of chasing the dollar. And I've certainly been in that mode as well. It's just, I feel like I have a much more peaceful existence in this, on this side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to bake as many cookies.
Oh man.
Sustainable.
I got really good at it though, I will say.
I can't believe we were baking the cookies.
Had a lot of practice.
Oh man. Well, we're about ready to wrap here. Dan, is there anything you want to add? Any last words or thoughts you guys have for listeners?
No, I mean, I appreciate, I think we kind of glossed it over a little bit, but early on, Carrot was one of our things that we had to have. And we just thought it was a website, literally. And I think it's just one of those tools that we just really, really had to have. And it makes such a difference. I mean, just really appreciate, thumbs up to Carrot. What a great product. And, again, we're very happy and we're blessed to be on this path. And as what Will's getting at with his charities and stuff, it's just, we want to, we've had luck and fortune and being blessed. We want to give all that back. And, and that's why we wanted to give you guys a shout out too. It's just great product and great organization.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Our whole aim is to, I say it at the beginning of every podcast, and I hope it doesn't get old, but really our aim is to help people build businesses of freedom and impact. And it's a balance, and a lot of people go into it for the freedom. But it brings us so much joy to see people actually like making that impact. And that's what we exist for. So it's encouraging to hear these stories. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. Everybody listening. You can find these guys, Deal Simple, in the Carrot Marketplace. If you're a Carrot member, go to carrot.com/marketplace. If not a Carrot member, check out dealsimple.co and check out their app. It's very intuitive, very simple, clean app. Imagine that. Yeah. And if you enjoyed this episode, share with a friend. Go to carrot.com/impact to find out how you can make an impact this month. We've got some really awesome things going on right now. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you next week.